Hello, everyone. Welcome to She Boss Talk. Today, we are having an important conversation that has the potential to impact all entrepreneurs and small business owners, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in your business. This is super important. We're going to be talking on the topic of In Pursuit of Equality, the Fearless Fund, and Hello Alice lawsuits. So if you have not heard about these lawsuits, it's so important that you learn about it and join the conversation and understand its impact on the ability to have equitable access to funding and other opportunities as an entrepreneur and a business owner. Now, I am joined here by some amazing Black women entrepreneurs that decided that they were going to come and lend their voice to the conversation and have a discussion about some real solutions that we can, real solutions and better impact. Unpacking what this means for us, not only as Black women, minority women, women in general, and entrepreneurs across the board. What does these lawsuits mean? So I'm going to give you background information on Hello Alice and the Fearless Fund, as well as background information on these lawsuits, so you understand what we're talking about here and you can enter the conversation. We want to welcome you all in. As you come in, let us know who you are, where you're from, and what your business is. We always want you to brag on yourself. Do us a favor too, tag another entrepreneur you know. This is going to be real important. It's so important that we share knowledge, share information, especially when it's this important and it has the ability to cause major impacts in your personal entrepreneurship journey. So with that said, I'm going to open it up and allow my constituents here to introduce themselves, and then we're going to get started. I'm going to start with Vannessa Wade. Hi, welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm excited to be on the show, excited to learn. I am Vannessa Wade, owner of Connect the Dots PR, where we specialize in helping our clients not only tell their story, but maximize their story. So I'm here once again, just excited to learn, to listen, to grow.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Kelli. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and join this conversation. I'm Kelli Kelley, the founder and CEO of Brand Method Creative Agency. We help our clients elevate their online presence so they can grow their business. Like I said, I'm just really excited to get into this. It's been kind of weighing pretty heavy on me the last couple of weeks.
Awesome. Thank you. And Effie?
Well, hello. I'm excited to be here with all of you today. My name is Effie Alofoje-Carr. I am the founder and the lead visionary over at Pretty Empowered People. We are a group and a hub for women and really any person who wants to pivot from an everyday average life into better opportunities with small business. And so we provide empowerment, encouragement, and coaching.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for joining us in this conversation. So let me lay some background information as we're getting started. So for those of you that may not, you're like, what is the Fearless Fund and what is Hello Alice? Okay. I just assume most of us know about it, but there's so millions of us that don't know about these organizations. And this is a way for you all to get connected with them as well, to learn what they do and how they can support you again in your entrepreneurship journey. Now, the Fearless Fund is an organization and it is led by Black women. It was founded and led by Black women, and they provide venture capital for women-led businesses and startups. That is what they do. And a part of what they do is providing grants, which, you know, I'm the queen of grants, which is free money that you don't have to pay back. You don't have to give up equity in your business or percentage of ownership in your business like you do if you are a recipient of venture capital. With venture capital, there's someone, organization, or entity that is giving you money in exchange for a percentage ownership in your company. So that is what they are doing. And why? Because we know that there are barriers to getting access to venture capital. If you don't know, last year, there was over $288 billion distributed in venture capital funding, but only 0.39%. Okay, not even 1%. Okay, 0.39% only went to Black women, business owners. That's how big the disparity is with getting access to capital. Okay, so that you can understand the landscape, and so we can frame it so you understand what is happening here. So it's not just that they give out grants, they are really trying to fill the gap and make sure that women entrepreneurs and startups get access to capital. Now, Hello Alice is another amazing platform. They are technology driven. They have hundreds of thousands of members. They've grown over the time of COVID-19, and they provide support and resources to the small business community and entrepreneurs. I think within the last 4 years, they have actually given out or dispersed over $35 million to entrepreneurs and small business owners around the country, if not worldwide, amongst all groups. Okay, so amongst all groups. So why are we here today if, these important organizations are needed and they're supporting us? Well, there are conservative groups that are out there that are filing lawsuits to fight against the diversity and inclusion initiatives that have been ongoing. They feel like this is reverse discrimination or reverse racism to have grant programs that are targeted for Black women or targeted for Black businesses. And that is why lawsuits were initiated on the Fearless Fund. So they were initiated first to the Fearless Fund because of their grant program that was giving out $20,000 to Black women entrepreneurs. And then that was followed by another organization and to sue the Hello Alice organization for their grant program that was giving out $25,000 in partnership with Progressive Insurance. So that is where we are. Now, what I can tell you as of now is that the Fearless Fund has gone through a few iterations in their litigation that has been appealed, where they won an appeal, then they lost another appeal. And right now they're at a point where the federal judge in Atlanta is saying that they're not going to block. Right. So the point is to block the grant program so no one can receive any awards, and those that may be pending awards, it will be halted until they work out the litigation. So the last that I know is that they're not going to block it, but then there's an appeal on appeals on appeals. This could potentially go to the Supreme Court. Okay. So that's when this is not the first that we've seen of these types of litigations. Okay. So this is becoming more and more and more prevalent. And then Hello Alice, again, just right behind it, there was a lawsuit filed against them for their program, and they're working through their litigations. What I like about both of these organizations is they came out and really spoke up. They've been on, I know the founders of the Fearless Fund have been on a media tour to talk about what is happening, and they put out an email. Each of the organizations put out an email to their community of members explaining what the lawsuits are and that they are really going to fight against these lawsuits. And what that fight means is that they're fighting for you and they're fighting for me and the programs that they have put in place to make sure that there's more equitable access, not only to funding, but like I said, to knowledge, to resource, to mentorship, and everything that we know is needed as a business owner for us to be successful. So that brings us here today to have this discussion about what does this mean? What does it mean for all of us for them to be engaged in a lawsuit that impacts the programs that are most important to us? And then what can we do about it? Right? What can we do to create change or create solutions so that all of us as entrepreneurs and business owners have equitable access to what we need in order to succeed in our businesses. So I'm going to open it up for discussion. And please, ladies, I mean, I don't know all the things. Again, I don't think it's really big news. A lot of times these things, they go under the radar. And before you know it, laws are changed that impact us and we didn't even know about it. That's why these topics are important for us to discuss, so that you know what actions you can take so that we can change it where it benefits all of us and not just a particular group is benefit or groups continue to be locked out of things that are important for us. So who wants to piggyback off of what I just said? So what are your thoughts, first of all, about the lawsuits that are currently going on right now between the Fearless Fund, against the Fearless Fund and Hello Alice, just to get your perspective.
So I'll say this. One, thank you for creating this platform for us to have an engaging conversation. Two, I will share that I've been a recipient of different grants that have helped me as a business owner. So when you speak about impact, it is real. It is the difference between being able to hire one or two people to help you grow your business and provide money and resources for families. And then three, again, I want to say I'm happy we're having this conversation, but I'm also disappointed that we're having this conversation in 2023. We're still having to fight for equality on some front. As I was sharing earlier before we officially went live, when we think about women, just how far back we are in reality when it comes to pay, when it comes to being able to have credit cards or purchase property. We weren't able to do those things back in the 1960s. It wasn't until the 1960s where it was like, okay, women are equal. Let's go and do. And so again, just to be here again, having the conversations about how do we make things equitable? We all know when women come together, we're able to provide jobs, we give more, we donate, we're able to say, oh, well, hey, let me take a look at your website and see how I can support you. Or, hey, have you thought about this particular language? And so when it comes to these two particular lawsuits, it just really makes me sad because I know the women at Hello Alice and how their heart really is to introduce women to services, but also empower women. We would go walking together, a 3-mile loop and walk together and talk about our businesses and what we need. And it's like, oh, this person has this and this person has that. So I think the larger part of the conversation really is how impactful and how this will trickle down to other people. But I have my other two sisters here that are ready to rock and roll, but I just had to get that out. And I definitely want to hear from them as well.
Yeah, much like Vannessa, I too have been a recipient for Hello Alice, and I'm very familiar with the Fearless Fund and have tracked their impact on our community for years. And I sit in astonishment of how impactful they have been over these years, especially once COVID came into play. And it was just so disappointing to even hear of it. Before I knew the details, it was very disappointing because, much to Vannessa's point, we're already so far back. And although things are technically legal, we're still feeling the remnants of all of what was illegal once upon a time, not that long ago even. So for something like this to come into play, it feels like 7 steps backwards into what is already an uphill battle all of the time in every aspect of our lives as women. And then once I heard the amounts, it was like, okay, it felt aggressive. It felt unnecessary. It felt like we were being made an example of. That's what it really felt like, to be honest with you, because in the greater scheme of things, Shantae, you mentioned the numbers of how much funding went out last year and what percentage of that went to Black women. To hear about a lawsuit about people giving out $20,000 grants is absolutely mind-blowing, that this is the hill you choose to put your stake in and say, no, this is how we're going to showcase that this is reverse discrimination. It feels intentional and it feels horrible.
Yeah. When I think about it, when I was thinking about it myself and I was looking at the numbers, and I'm like, so they chose these smaller programs to go after, when I read off those billions of dollars that goes to our counterparts, and we're only getting a minute portion of that. So the fact that they didn't go after some larger program is really astonishing as well to me. So I'm glad that you said that. And I'm glad that you mentioned how the organizations have supported you all. And congratulations on being able to get grants. Like, I have been a member of Hello Alice since I found out about it, I think at the height of the pandemic. This was almost 4 years ago. And although I have not received a grant, it has been a great resource for me. Not just resources, access to information, but also being connected to a network. And not every day, but every time they have a new grant, and it's like almost daily, they have a new grant program that comes out, and I'm applying for it, right? And for me, it's not just that they don't just have grants for just Black-owned businesses or Black women. They have grants for all types of businesses, but they understand that there are underrepresented populations of small business owners who historically don't get access to funds. Right? Funds. These are funds. This is capital they need, capital infusion to their business that we know is necessary to start your business and to be able to support your business in its business growth. Right? So they know this, and that is why they carve out these programs. So again, it's very interesting to see that they would attack these smaller type programs. But again, they're doing it with intention too. So these are not the only programs that they're going after, but it's to really get the ball rolling for what they really want to do. And that's really to tear down all of these programs that are meant to help with diversity and inclusion and equity across the board. This is just one of those steps that they're taking in that effort.
That was literally exactly what I was going to say. It is literally the plan to dismantle all of the work that has been done with diversity, equity, and inclusion across the board. It's greatly concerning to me. I love Hello Alice. I love the Fearless Fund. I have followed them both for years. They have been also to me a great resource. I have been able to benefit from grant funds, not from those two, but others that are similar, other similar programs that help support those who are BIPOC, female, they might be in the LGBTQIA plus community, definitely marginalized communities. I have been a recipient of grant funds, and it terrifies me that this will set a precedence. And we will now start to see a rollback of so many other things. And the reason why that we have a legitimate fear about this is if you consider what has happened at universities for affirmative action and how that went, you can already see how this could go, and it could be detrimental. Already, it is a struggle to be a business owner. Already, it is a struggle to get that support. And when you are, particularly all of us here are women of color, we are Black women. We just don't have access to the same resources, and we don't have the same connections. A lot of us don't. There are people who have it, but so many of us have a need. And so if you pull out the string from this little fabric, it'll unravel so much. And I'm deeply, deeply concerned about this. And I feel like some of the best ways that we can get around it when we start thinking about even maybe some solutions is we need to know the law front, back, and center. We need to look at every loophole. We need lawyers on standby, other people who understand the law. We need to understand the law for ourselves. I mean, we really need to really start seeing how we can utilize the law in the way that they have to come against us. So that's like one of the first places my mind goes when I think about this. It's just deeply disturbing.
Yeah. So we have different perspectives, and I definitely want to dig into it because, again, knowledge is power. And I like that you said that we need to dig into the laws and the regulations. A lot of times people have perspectives just based on their and it's based on lack of knowledge or maybe misinformation or miseducation. And so they have a feeling about a thing But it's not fact based, and it's not all. A lot of times it may not even be reality based. So it's like breaking those things down, so you provide people with the right information and knowledge, so that they can take, again, appropriate actions, and so that they can, again, maybe just join in together, unify, to make it where everybody has equal access to, again, what it is that they need. So one of the things that I wanted to tackle, just based on one of the questions that came up here and I've seen before, is just the opposite side of it, right? Where you have, again, conservatives and other groups that feel like, okay, well, we don't want race included in anything. It's always been that way, and it's not even anything that has been in our control. It's just been against us, and I don't think that they realize that. But there's that other part that said, okay, we want to take race out of the equation, right? And we want there not to be a discrimination against anyone. Here's my question. For those people that feel like this is racism, it is reverse discrimination that is happening here when you have a program that caters to a Black-owned business. There's programs that cater to veteran businesses. So again, we could take this as far down the road as possible, right? But how did we get here? Right? Understanding, if we break down reverse discrimination, how is it? I would like someone to explain, how is it reverse discrimination when you are helping a population of people that are already behind because of systematic discriminatory systems, laws, and practices that remain in place today.
What you just said actually answers the question. Reverse discrimination does not exist. You cannot be racist if you are not the majority dominant group that is in power. So all of this is baseless to begin with. Is why it's so deeply troubling to me. It doesn't exist.
So this is just a made up thing, a made up and not propaganda, so that people think that is reverse discrimination, so then that we can tear down these programs that are so essential to make sure that there's equality for everyone, right? So for me, it's like there would be no need to have, when you think about affirmative action, trying to tear that down, and you talk about having a grant that's targeted for a woman-owned business, or having one targeted for a Black-owned business, do you ever think, this is my audience, why would they do such a thing? If everything is as equitable as you think it is, what would be the reason that you would need to have a targeted grant program, or any program for that matter, if everything was equal across the board? Let's think about it.
Yeah, Shantae, I think to your point, and not to get off topic, but I think that this is part of a bigger play. You mentioned affirmative action. There's also that conversation around critical race theory and wanting to eliminate basic knowledge about some of the root issues when it comes to this. So all of it is intertwined. And my guess is to create this sense, as hard as they can, create this sense that this doesn't exist. And I think one of the solutions is we're going to have to keep this conversation going, regardless of people who tell us we're keeping up racism if we talk about it. All these weird sort of just kind of sound bites people throw out that are baseless. If you mention racism, you're keeping it up. No, we're not. I've been a Black woman for 43 years. I've been Black all my life. I know what it is. I know what it feels like. I know that it's very real. It's not made up. It is still very active today. And it's a conversation we are going to have to continue to have. And that's part of how we do our part. And again, to your other point about unification, we have to unify and we have to get educated. So often I've seen in other related instances when it comes to even politics, people, once things happen, that's when people get enraged and they have a feeling, but it's not based in any sort of law or anything. And it's like, we want to bypass that and be emotional and go rah, 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 and demand changes at the last minute or right away. It doesn't work like that. We're going to have to get into the boring stuff. We're going to have to get into who our local constituents are, who our congressmen are. We're going to have to do that type of stuff. We all need a civics refresher. Because every time, and you can see it on probably anybody's timeline, every time we get into election season, people are saying the wildest things and they have crazy demands at the last minute. And in my head, I'm like, that's not how the law works. And even in these situations, yes, it's fine to be outraged, but what are we going to do? How are we going to start in our local communities and move up to help prevent this from happening? Because the train is left. And they are moving fast and aggressive. And we have to do what we can in our lifetime. And also, one more point, we have to be willing to do the work, no matter how small it is. And even if we in our lifetime don't see the benefits, that's the other part of this that is very frustrating for me, is that I see with younger people, if they are not going to get instant satisfaction or gratification from it, they're less likely to want to do all that work. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, even if this doesn't pan out until my kids, I'm willing to do that for the sake of our community. And we have to get back to that. If the people that made the way for us, Martin Luther King, said, oh, I'm not doing all this work just for this little bit of stuff, like, where would we be? We have to be willing to carry that torch and say, okay, even if I change my local in my community, it might not have an impact for 20 years, but I have to do something. And we got to get in that mindset.
And Kelly, I want to tag team with you, on what you just said, because it's a narrative. It's a long narrative. And it's a narrative based in fear. And when I talk about a long narrative being based in fear, whenever it comes to someone else having an opportunity to thrive, we've all heard conversations when we talk about people from the Hispanic community and people say they're taking our jobs. And I promise you, if you say, what do you mean? They can't even justify it.
I always ask, well, who's doing the hiring? When people say that, they're taking our job. Well, who's hiring them?
And not only that, but they're jobs that you weren't applying for. I've never applied to be a housekeeper, so they're not taking a job from me. I never applied to hang shingles, so they're not taking jobs away from me. But again, we see how that narrative is long and it's rooted in something that's untrue. And so when it comes to us and we think about, okay, what's the next thing I can do? It's really going into those organizations and saying, how can I support you? And I've let people know there are so many ways we can support. Maybe I'm not able to do a $25,000 grant yet, but with my communications background, I can send out some newsletters, with someone with the legal background. Hey, I can do this pro bono. With someone with a fundraising background, they know how to get out and secure funds. So realistically, we can all do something. I believe what happens is we get caught up in the news and we're like, I can't believe how unfair that is. And then we do nothing. And then we hear it again and we're like, oh, that's so unfair. And we do nothing. And so I appreciate this conversation because it lets us know that we're watching. We know what's going on and we're doing something. We're being proactive versus being reactive. Because again, a lot of narratives that people hear, they're just that. They aren't really, they're based, I think Shantae said it, like in some half truths along the way. And so we have to be wise enough that when we hear these conversations to actually stop the person and have a conversation, like you said, well, who's doing the hiring? Or when was the last time you've applied for this type of job? Or how is this person receiving a $25,000 grant hurting you? And the answer is, it's not really hurting me. I just don't want you to have it. Even with me having a 500-year head start, I just don't want you to have it.
That's so good, Vannessa. I often wonder what are the ways that I can use my influence and impact and remain calm and educate others when they, make these what I feel like are inflammatory statements that are not based in the actual facts. And when you think about the fact that why would you not want equity, right? Equality is one thing, but why would you not want equity
Right.
if it were you? If you were in someone else's shoes, wouldn't you desire equity? You would. And so it's helping people understand that the big P word, privilege, is real and doesn't necessarily mean that it is a bad thing. I carry my own privileges and I'm a Black woman, right? And I fully acknowledge that. So it's just being able to have these conversations and educate people, but then also being open to being educated. And I wonder how we can reach more people so that they are not supportive of any type of legislation, any type of lawsuits that dismantle these programs. And I wonder what thoughts all of you have about that. Because I'm struggling, honestly.
I struggle too. I think, at this point in my life, when I was much younger, I call it being Pollyanna. I was very much, I had this outlook on life. And when things came up, especially regarding racism, I was very much like, oh no, we should all be getting, and I still feel that way to a degree. But if I'm completely honest, I'm a little jaded, especially after the last 10 years. And it's difficult for me in some cases to have conversations with people that aren't coming from a genuine, empathetic place. I'm not going to argue with you about what it is like to be Black in this country. That's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to have you tell me how I need to react in certain situations. Now, if you have genuine questions, I'm still open to that, but it is difficult. I feel like people are in their silos and they may be on the receiving end of information from their trusted network. Their mothers, their fathers, their grandparents have been telling them the same things for all these years. So now they're out in the world as an adult and they feel like they are equipped with the end all be all knowledge. And it's like, no, you're not. Especially if you're not a part of this community, you have what you were taught. I have what I have lived. And so you cannot debate me on how I need to respond to anything. Nobody in this community, you can't do that with us. It's a very real experience and it is still very active today.
Effie, can you repeat the question for our audience, please?
Absolutely. So I was curious about what others thought about being able to be patient and educate others so that they might realize that it is important that equity goes forth and not equality. And so that when we are able to have these conversations with others, they understand where we're coming from and they actually want to be on the side of dismantling oppression versus being okay with lawsuits of this nature, legislature that's going forth, that is really not helping us move forward as people, as a culture, as a country. And so my question really was like, how do I remain patient? How do I properly educate people? Like Kelly, the last 10 years have completely jaded me. I used to be so kind and giving in terms of like giving people chances and, educating them, having conversations like them. And now I will not debate about a Black woman's experience in America. I'm not doing it. And I also feel like Google is real and you can also Google this unless you want to slide me a Cash App. And so I'm just curious what others think, like how can we start having these conversations again? How can I use my impact and influence? Because that's really what's going to probably move the needle is if I use my impact and influence over my own circle that doesn't look like me. But I just don't have the patience though. So how am I going to do it?
Yeah. So
part of it is you've answered your own question. So you do need to have patience, because you said, how could I have patience? You're like, but I don't have the patience for it. It's how I believe it's truly how you live your life. It's truly how you live, because it's just like, even if we take skin color away, the conversation remains the same. People have to see it up close to even care. It's why do people care about missing and exploited children? Because someone in their family was probably missing or exploited. So I suggest just live your life and make it open for people to feel that they can come up to you. As you can tell, I am also a Black woman. And I have a lot of friends that don't look like me. And I believe I've made it easy for them to come to me and say, well, Vannessa, I don't understand. Or Vannessa, can you explain this to me? And yes, they can Google, and yes, they can read, but we can also educate. And I know we get tired of educating people, especially as Black women. It's like, do we always have to save the day? But the answer is yes. With the way things are going, the answer is yes. And so it's being able to have those conversations that they wouldn't be able to have in other spaces. It's having those conversations and them being willing to risk being popular in those spaces. Because I've had that happen to me where, again, my friends that don't look like me, someone has said something and they get on the defensive and they're like, what they say to you, Vannessa? Well, Vanessa's too kind to say something, but I'm going to. And again, they're being allies. And so it's allowing people to understand and allowing people to be allies in the way that they can be. Some people are never going to say Black Lives Matter. They're not, but they're going to give you money. Some people may not invite you to have a seat at the table, but they're going to mentor you. And so it's just all these different ways. So, Effie, I agree, that we're all of this to different people, but we also have to be willing to listen because there are people that haven't had certain life experiences. So no matter how you frame it, they're just not going to believe it to be true. And so that shouldn't change you. That should just encourage you to say, well, hey, look, I'm going to keep showing up. Just like people come to you for business advice, they'll start coming to you for advice on, well, how do I approach this situation? Even if they say, but I'm not a racist. And we understand sometimes they're not, but it's your way of thinking. It's, do you speak up for other people, or are you just there like, well, it doesn't impact me? So continue to show up. I know I said a lot. So, continue to show up as who you are. Continue to provide that open door. Continue to have those conversations. I do that on my Facebook page every once in a while, and you will be shocked how many times people really want to have these conversations, but they're afraid because they don't want to be name called and they don't want anyone to hurt them. But this is how we have those conversations.
Yeah, I think this is great. It's just like us. We started the conversation, right? Someone posted about this. We came in to know about a thing, and we wanted to, not just for it to be, to talk about it in isolation, because really nothing gets solved that way, but opening it up for a conversation. And we can all be professional, right? And sharing. I always say sharing is caring. Sometimes it's just a not lack of knowledge, lack of experience, and sometimes it's just plain ignorance, right? So it's not always, and no one is saying people are racist and this and that, but we know that people are. But again, I think people need to think bigger than just people are racist. It's systematic. And so I think that once people understand that there are systems in place that need to be continue to be torn down, dismantled, readjusted, reevaluated, like you would think when you're in corporate America, and even they fall short a lot of times, where you should have your systems and your processes and your teams and your company, your financials audited at least every year, every 2 years. Well, you have these systems that have been in place hundreds of years that no one has ever thought to audit. If you would just audit the system, you would find all of the gaps and the holes and the discriminatory practices, and you have people there to say, okay, let's look at this. Wow, these are things that we really need to change. Now, I want to let you all know that those things are happening, like right now. But we need those things to happen across the board. And when I say that they're happening, a lot of it began to happen when COVID happened. Mm-hmm. We have a worldwide, unprecedented pandemic, a pandemic unlike none I've ever seen in my lifetime. That revealed a lot of things to a lot of people. And when I mean a lot of things to a lot of people, especially within the business landscape and entrepreneur landscape, they were really able to see the huge, significant disparities when it comes to access to Black entrepreneurs, minority entrepreneurs versus their counterparts. And many of these companies and organizations and people and entities said, oh my God, I can no longer, like sometimes they said, well, I knew about some of these things, but it wasn't enough to take action on it until it really hit them during this pandemic. Like, we can no longer sit on the sidelines. We have to do something about it. And we not only have to talk about it, but we're going to have to put our money behind it, all our resources behind it. We're going to have to audit our systems and our practices. Through all of that, they found that there were major inequities across the board in their systems. But what I liked is that they acknowledged it, they realized it, and said, I'm going to do something about it. That's why we have these programs. These programs did not exist. If you think about it, did they exist prior to COVID? No. When were they giving out grants like they're giving out right now and funding to for-profit businesses? They were not. So if you just think of yourself as a small business, right, as a population of a business, right, that is a minority, you consider, well, we're the majority, but small businesses and all the challenges we have and the inability to get access to some of these programs like grants and contracts that these multi-billion-dollar companies have, they said, okay, let's look at this. What are we going to do to give more access to these grants and these contracts to these small business owners? And so that encompasses the whole group of small business owners as is defined by the SBA. And so one of the things that they did, this is just one, okay? So they opened up these grant programs, but the administration has an agenda that by 2025, 50% of all government contracts, right? All government contracts will go to small businesses. And then you break that down. Okay, so if they're opening up the pool to more small businesses, that means they're opening up the pool to Black women, Black businesses, minority businesses, veteran businesses, LGBTQ businesses, all of these businesses that are now going to be able to have access to what they didn't have access before. And meaning that is bridge. What does that do? Bridge the wealth gap. So there's a real wealth gap in this country, and a path to wealth is through government contracting. They're the larger procurer of goods and services in the world. But still, we have set-asides. And so if you think about they're attacking this grant program, what's next? They're going to come after the program that's set in place to give more contracts to minority businesses. So let's talk about, what does this mean? If you just think about, if this sets a precedent, okay, what does the world look like? What does the entrepreneur landscape look like, where we have there's less and less and less equity across the board? Because you said, okay, we're going to ignore the fact that the systems are set up to be discriminatory and unequitable. We're going to ignore that. And at the same time, we're going to cut down any and every initiative that is put forth to bridge the gap and make it equal. Not more, not less, make it equal. What does that look? Where are we then? What does that look like?
I think as a community, that puts us in a position to lose the power and the momentum that we have been getting in terms of a community. So even in the last few years, even though some of the grants were smaller than what some of our counterparts are getting in the multi-million-dollar seed funds and this fund and that fund and the other, it still put us on the path to autonomy and being able to establish some legacy for our families. And plant those seeds, like I said before, being in a position to do our part, even if it doesn't play out for 2 generations. I think that was noticed. I mean, there's no, companies were extremely public about their pledges, especially during COVID. I was actually the recipient of, or was able to take part in the Goldman Sachs 1 Million Black Women program. The name, it's in the name of the program. And that was a tremendous help. It was like an MBA in 8 weeks, and they spared no expense. They gave us very, very valuable knowledge and resources and all this type of stuff. So I think if that all that goes away, that puts us back into a position where we lose the little bit of gain that we had, or, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but not those, and it's like, well, did you find anything nefarious with the funds? No, we just, we don't think that this is reverse discrimination and all these other things. So again, I'm very hopeful that we can not get discouraged to the point where we get analysis paralysis, or we get so caught up in our anger that we don't do something, even if it's small. Like, we have to be willing to speak out, speak up, join an organization, contribute your time, support another Black business. We have to be able to do something.
Absolutely. Vannessa, Effie, any comments from you?
All I can say is ditto. Kelly did a fantastic job of knocking it out the park, of telling us where we are and where we could be. I believe the only thing I can add is that's why it's important for us to support one another as small business owners in whatever way or whatever form. So if that means, hey, I'm going to tell you about a grant, or I'm going to help you find a grant writer, or I'm going to help you revamp your business plan or business model, being open to allowing someone else to come in and help you build your business or scale and maintain your business. That's the only other thing I would add, because Kelly said it perfectly.
Yes. Awesome. Now I'm going to let you talk, Effie, but I just want to acknowledge our community. I'm seeing your comments. So I just want to let you know that we see you out there. We want to definitely get through the show and the conversation, but you are part of the conversation. So we need you all to lend to this conversation. Let us know your thoughts, what your ideas are, what it is that we can do to help support these organizations. So we're going to be talking about that in just a few minutes. But what we can do to turn things around. And so we've been talking about that, but there's even more things that we can do individually, and more so what we need to do is collectively. There's things that we can do. I just want to mention that is it Valencia Harris? Shout out to Valencia Harris. She said that was such a good question, Effie. She said, be discerning about who is genuine. So when you do share your pearls, they will land on fertile ground. And do what Vannessa said, use your platforms, right? Absolutely. That's what I'm doing right now, is using my platform. That's what made me successful. That's how I was able to help so many people during the pandemic. We can't assume that people know things or people understand. There's so many people that they live and operate in isolation. So you may think that, oh, you should know this or that. They really don't know. And I can say that across the board. It's not just, with this particular topic, it's across the board. Every nationality I've witnessed this. So it's so important, yes, just to be open. And I know we get frustrated. We get frustrated as business owners having to babysit our clients all the time. So it's just like, relate that to other things, other experiences that you have. I think if we can do that, then we can more relate to someone else's plight, what they're going through. We can step into someone else's shoes and feel what they're feeling. Even if we've never been through that thing before, then we can empathize, and we can help. If we empathize with people, then we can better support them. Even if we haven't been through it ourselves, we can support them. So I love that. And I know someone had mentioned Black farmers out here. Like I said, this is not the first thing. There were many lawsuits during COVID. There were many lawsuits that actually shut down high-level COVID programs that were meant to benefit small businesses just because they got caught up in litigation. So one of the programs was the Restaurant Revitalization Grant, where many people applied, and there were minority businesses that were awarded, and their awards were snatched once the lawsuits were filed, and they never were awarded. Congress never came back and said we're going to allocate more money to compensate so that we can make sure everyone that applied gets payment. So what does that mean? That those restaurants suffered, right? Many of those restaurants wound up closing, and many restaurants today still are experiencing challenges. Likewise with the farmer, there was grants or programs specifically carved out for Black farmers that again was subject to lawsuits. And so if you do, and someone mentioned statistics, so this is not going to be the only program that we have. We're going to continue this discussion, and even there's so many statistics that we can cite. If you have certain statistics you want to share or you want us to dive more into, please let us know in the comments, and then we can prepare for the next discussion. But this is real across the board. It doesn't begin and end with the grant program. It's across the board with the farmers who there's disparities there. If you never heard of the disparities amongst Black farmers and how the leads that they get and funding that they get and support and resources that they get as farmers, that make it even challenging industry even more challenging when you can't get equitable funding and equitable resources for your farm, right? That these farms feed what? They are there to feed people in the U.S. and around the world. And so if they can't get funding that they need to support their farming, then that has a ripple effect. It goes beyond them, right? So these things go just beyond one person or one program or one company. It has a ripple effect, and it will affect all of these things are impacting the entire landscape. One thing I did want to mention that we talked briefly about is like the SBA, Small Business Administration, their 7A a program is under attack as well. So this is a real issue. So what I wanted to do before we close out is just talk more about some of the things that we can do to support and things that we can do to help bring solutions and ways that we can do this collectively. So I'll just mention briefly the way you can support the Fearless Fund is by go to their website. It's fearless.fund is the website. Learn more about them. Learn more about these organizations and get involved. They have a petition right now. They had a goal of 10,000. I think it's just above that. But sign the petition that they have. Read about. They just filed a 941-page response to the lawsuit. You can read that or read excerpts from it to get more informed about what is going on. They have a fearless. They have a whole initiative here. Let me make sure.
And Shante, while you're looking that up, another thing I would encourage people to do is to have deeper conversations with people that actually want to have conversations.
Yes.
A lot of people have been at a disadvantage, whether it's your age or whether it's how you speak, your accent, it's disadvantage. And so do not confuse a person saying, I want an equal playing field with hand me something, because they are not the same. We tell people, work hard, work hard. You can work as hard as you want to, but if you don't know about resources that are available, that's it. Because even working hard comes with certain criteria. Hey, join this mastermind if you're already making $1 million. Hey, sign up and take this from this particular group if you've already netted 85,000. So I don't want people to confuse the two. And I believe that's where the conversation gets wonky, because there's a difference in saying this person is historically disadvantaged. Yes, they have worked hard. Yes, they have the education. They've never been to jail. They don't even have a speeding ticket. And all of that is great. And it looks good on paper. And it looks good for people to shout it to justify what they feel. But in reality, it really is about exposure and showing people where their business can be and where their business can bloom and where their business can grow. So I know a lot of times, again, when we have these conversations, people hear handout versus I just want to be in the room. Put me in the room and I can do what I need to do. So that's what I wanted to
That's
share.
great.
I appreciate you sharing that, Vannessa, because, you know, Shante, you had also mentioned that this is like a ripple effect for everything. And I think a lot of people don't realize like this affects you, even if you're not a person of color. We think about from the lens of public health, which is what I do by day, racism has been declared a public health crisis.
Mm-hmm.
It means that the quality of care, the access to even quality food that would give you the energy and the brain power to work hard and just, you know, stay on top of things, like it is all a ripple effect. And so when you think about it from that lens, your empathy meter rises significantly because people can't get in the room and they can't get access. And if your health and your body and your physicality aren't even safe and cared for and taken care of, how can you even work as hard as you really probably potentially could, right? And so I so appreciate that link that you both brought up because you can't even do one without the other, and it's a giant ripple effect.
It is. This is so good. You ladies are just dropping so many gems. I just want to briefly mention the Fearless Freedom campaign that is hosted by the Fearless Fund. So Google it or just go to their website. It's a tab for the Fearless Freedom campaign, and you can see everything that's involved with that. I do want to say, and I believe Kelly, you might have been the one to mention this earlier, or it might have been you, Vannessa. But I think really having education around laws and the justice system and the electoral process. I don't think a lot of people really understand the process and how again, how the system work, how the branches, the different branches work. And so if you don't know that, it's really hard for you to, you know, if you don't understand that, it's hard for you to know what is happening and how it is that you can support and how to use your vote. And I think voting is so important, and not just when there is the primary elections. It's the paying attention, going to those local meetings, getting involved, like with your city council. There are things that are happening at the local level, and it goes up to the federal level. So while you may only be hearing things about the federal, these laws are being made and changed at the lower level. So you definitely want to get involved and get educated on the process and how it works. Because again, these things are happening, and you see there's all this noise and things and in the media, and then next thing you know, they're changing laws and you wouldn't even know about it. Next thing, your rights are gone. What you thought you had were your rights yesterday are no longer rights that you have today. And we've seen it time just recently, just every other day, really, there's laws that are changing and your rights are being impacted. So it's just like one of them said, don't just think about it, is this just one person over here? This impacts all of us in the life that we live. Right. So it's so important that we support each other and really get educated and surround yourself with people like us, and get connected to other organizations. We'll definitely provide resources in the comments, as I always do, where you can get connected, where you can learn more about the laws in your city and your county and your state, who to get connected to, so that you know what's going on, so that you can have a voice and a vote on making sure the laws that are implemented not only best impact you, but impact the entire, are positive impact on the entire community. I think those are things that we can do as well.
And real quick, because I just found this out, one quick, easy thing anybody can do today. If you want to have that access to your local constituents, you can probably access your local chamber. They usually host breakfasts and things like that. That's easy. That's quick, guys. That's maybe a $30 ticket. Maybe it's free because the person running needs the audience. And that's your opportunity to get in a room without having to go to the White House or whatever you think you're going to do at the last minute, which we all see when it comes to election time. 60 days out, we be talking about we need a third party. That's not how it works. You have to start on your local level, and the chamber. You can Google it right now. Wherever you are, your local chamber will probably have an upcoming event that has a local politician as a host.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad that you said that, because I push that all the time. Local chamber of commerce is one of the greatest resources for small businesses, and they're advocate for small businesses. And when things come across their desk, opportunities, if you're connected with them, you get access to them, right? So that's the importance of staying connected. When we say your network is your net worth, it really is. Stay connected. And that is one easy thing that you can do, is get connected to a chamber like near you. Effie, were you about to say something? No? Okay. So we're about to close out. Any last words before we close out? This has been a great conversation. Audience, we thank you so much. They're saying that this is a wonderful discussion. And we love having discussions, but we want to give you some real things that you can do. We always want to make sure we're leaving with some action items on the table. So these are all things that we can do, and we will continue to share resources. If you would like to continue the conversation, I think even broader conversation is needed. If you would like to be a guest and further discuss some solutions around this, because again, these are just a few of the many things that are already happening that we need to put a stop to. And oftentimes we feel like we can't, the impact we can make on our own is very little. But let me tell you, all you just need is a few people to get together collectively, and there is much power in collectivism. And if we would learn that, there's no barrier that we're confronted with that we can't overcome. And so all of these things that are happening, we can address them and we can resolve them if we continue to work together. So thank you so much. Thank you. Great information. Thank you so much for the update. Please stay aware. We're heightening your awareness. So now that you see this, believe me, you're going to start seeing some more things coming up, and know how this impacts you. It impacts your business and impacts your family. So that's why this is so important. It impacts the entire entrepreneur landscape, our ability to get access to funding, our ability to even be able to start our business, our ability to get access to contracts, whether it's corporate or governmental contracts. And that is where the wealth is. And those that don't want to have equitable wealth are the ones that's trying to break down the system, and those that are trying to have it where we don't have that diversity and equity across the board. So we need all of you all to get involved. We thank you so much for tuning in. I want to say thank you to Vannessa. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Effie, for lending your voice, lending your expertise and your wisdom to the conversation. We definitely appreciate you, and we thank you. As always, continue to be the boss with Amplify Impact. Until next time, have a great day.